The thrill of the unknown. That's what John lived for. An experienced caver with a resume of tight squeezes and deep descents. He was more comfortable 1,000 feet underground than he was at a coffee shop. So when word got out about a newly discovered cave system in the remote Appalachian foothills, unmapped and untouched, John was the first to pack his gear. The local caving community called it Dama, a fitting name for the gaping, shadowy entrance that seemed to swallow the light. For John, it wasn't a warning. It was an invitation. He descended into the cool, damp air, the familiar scent of wet earth and stone filling his lungs. His headlamp cut a sharp, white beam through the immense darkness, revealing cathedral-like chambers adorned with glistening stalactites, like teeth in the mouth of some great stone beast. Every drip of water, every crunch of gravel under his boots, was a symphony of exploration. The deeper he went, the more the cave silence seemed to press in on him. A heavy, ancient quiet that felt alive. He was mapping the system, taking notes, feeling the pure, unadulterated joy of being the first human to lay eyes on these subterranean wonders. The world above, with its noise and its chaos, faded into a distant memory. Down here, it was just him and the earth's raw, secret beauty. Hours melted away. He was deep, far deeper than any casual explorer would dare to venture. He had just navigated a particularly tight passage, emerging into a vast, cavernous room, when he heard a low, distant groan. It wasn't the sound of shifting rock he was used to. This was deeper, more guttural. He paused, listening. The groan escalated into a grinding roar, and the ground beneath him trembled violently. Above, the rock ceiling moaned in protest. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced through his professional calm. He scrambled back toward the passage he'd exit, but it was too late. With a deafening crash, a section of the ceiling collapsed, sending a cascade of massive boulders and debris down, completely sealing the way he came. The roar subsided, replaced by the tinkle of falling pebbles, and then a silence more profound and terrifying than any he had ever known. Dust hung thick in the air, choking him, making his headlamp beam diffuse into a useless haze. He was trapped. Protocol kicked in. Check supplies, conserve energy, find another way out. He was a survivor. But as the dust settled, something else settled with it. A feeling, a cold, prickling sensation on the back of his neck. He wasn't alone. At first, he dismissed it as paranoia, a trick of the mind under extreme stress. He began methodically searching the chamber's perimeter, his light tracing the damp, ancient walls, looking for any crack, any fissure that might lead to another passage. That's when he heard the first whisper. It was faint, like the sigh of wind through a keyhole. But there was no wind down here. The sound was formless, a sibilant hiss that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. He froze, straining his ears. The whispering grew, weaving in and out of the echoes of his own breathing. It wasn't a language he could understand, yet it felt intelligent, ancient, and filled with a chilling malevolence. His heart hammered against his ribs. He cried out, his voice sounding small and fragile in the immense space. "Hello, is someone there?" The only answer was the mocking echo of his own words, followed by the whispers, which seemed to grow slightly louder, more insistent. A new sound joined them, a soft, wet scraping, like something heavy being dragged across the stone floor. Just at the edge of his light, he swung his headlamp wildly, the beam cutting frantic arcs through the darkness. He saw nothing but rock and shadow, yet the sounds persisted. The scraping, the whispering, they were closer now. Then, his headlamp flickered, once, twice. The brilliant white light sputtered to a sickly yellow. He tapped the casing, his hand trembling. The light flared back to life, but the warning was clear. His batteries were dying. The whispers seemed to laugh, a chorus of dry, rustling sounds that scraped at his sanity. The scraping sound was right behind him. Espunaron, seeing nothing, but the feeling of a cold presence was overwhelming. It was playing with him, toying with its trapped prey. The air grew colder, and the damp smell of the cave was now mixed with something else. A foul, organic stench of decay and damp soil. The whispers were inside his head now, a cacophony of unintelligible, hateful sounds. His light flickered again, more violently this time, and then, with a final, pathetic sizzle, it died, plunging him into absolute, suffocating blackness. A darkness so complete it was a physical force, pressing in on his eyes. He had never known such a void. The sounds, however, were clearer than ever. The scraping was no longer dragging. It was moving faster, scuttling. The whispers were a constant, maddening babble. It was hunting him. Blind and terrified, John dropped to the floor, crawling on his hands and knees. The rough, wet stone tore at his skin, but the pain was a distant anchor to reality. A had to move. He had to escape. He could hear it circling him, the scuttling sound moving in a wide arc around his position. He would crawl a few feet, then freeze, listening. The scuttling would stop, and the whispers would intensify, as if trying to pinpoint his location by his frantic heartbeat. He felt a gust of cold, foul-smelling air wash over his face. It was close. So close. He scrambled away, his hands flailing in the dark, searching for a wall, a guide, anything. His fingers brushed against a narrow opening, a tight crack in the rock face he hadn't seen with his light. It was barely wide enough for his body. Behind him, the scuttling sound grew frantic. Closer, it knew he'd found a way out. Without a second thought, he shoved his head and shoulders into the crevice. The rock scraped and bit into him, his pack snagging behind him. Hetorit, of abandoning his gear, his food, his water. All that mattered was escape. He pushed, twisted, and squeezed, the rock grinding against his ribs, his hips. The whispers shrieked in frustration from the chamber behind him, a sound of pure rage that spurred him on. He could feel the slick, cold stone of the narrow passage against his cheek. A welcome, solid reality against the formless terror he was leaving behind. He didn't know how long he crawled. Time lost all meaning in the tight, black passage. It could have been hours. It could have been a day. His world was reduced to the scrape of his body against rock, the burn in his muscles, and the rhythmic, desperate gasp of his own breath. The shrieking whispers had faded, replaced by the drumming of his own blood in his ears. Hope was a dying ember, but it wasn't extinguished yet. Then, he saw Italiano, a pinprick of faint, gray light, far ahead in the tunnel. It was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. He sobbed, a raw, ragged sound, and crawled faster, his battered body screaming in protest. The light grew, shifting from gray to a pale blue. He could feel a draft of fresh air, clean and cool, washing away the stench of the deep. He pushed himself through one final, agonizingly tight squeeze and tumbled out onto a mossy ledge. Was out. It was in a different part of the cave system, one that led to a secondary, hidden exit. Sunlight, filtered through a canopy of leaves, streamed in. He lay there, gasping, his body a canvas of cuts and bruises. He had survived, but as he looked back at the dark hole he had emerged from, he knew a part of him would be trapped down there forever. He never spoke in detail about what happened. He simply sold his cavern gear and never set foot near a cave entrance again. Some nights, when the house is quiet and the wind sighs outside his window, he can still hear it, the faint, dry whispers, echoing from the suffocating darkness deep within the earth. Thanks for watching. If stories of survival and the unexplained fascinate you, hit that like button and subscribe for more. Stay safe out there.